Just be me.
Talk with gusto. We need just talk with gusto.
Well, you just said not to be too gusty.
Well, no, but there's a difference between hello, gusto, and hello, gusto, like with purpose.
Okay.
That might be a little, that's too loud. That's too much gusto.
Okay.
That's too much. Why are you laughing?
I don't know.
Scale of 1 to 10. Are you more nervous now for the sequel episode than the first one? Why?
I don't know.
Because there's expectation?
I don't know, because you said if it doesn't come out good, then I'm just thinking I'm going to be bad. So.
But no, what that is there's like a ripcord. Like with the parachute, you have the backup chute. So like this podcast's backup chute is just in case anything's bad, we don't have to air it. I mean, you can swear as much as you want. We don't have to.
Okay.
You don't have to be bleeped or anything.
Okay.
So, hello, Mother. Good afternoon.
Did we start?
We've been started.
Oh, good.
I'm just going to chop all this up, and you won't know what I'm going to include. See, that's how this works.
Okay.
Everybody else, including yourself, will know when the episode launches. It's like a surprise. We never know.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Save It for the Cast. This is episode 3 of season 2. And much like season 1, episode 3, I have a very special guest on today's episode. It is my lovely, wonderful mother, Debbie Doozer.
Hello, all.
I was going to say hello, Debbie.
Hello, Debbie.
Well, no, that's you. You're not saying hello to yourself. You're saying hello to the audience.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah. So surprisingly, or I guess I should say unsurprisingly, your episode of season 1 was definitely the most wholesome out of all of them, I would argue. And I was actually surprised at how much interest was garnered from it. Like, it brought in people that I wouldn't think would normally listen to the podcast, but they did because of you. So I don't know if you know this, you have a lot of drawing power.
Of course I do.
I know. Well, I guess it was just surprising from a podcast perspective, not from a conversational perspective or whatever.
Okay.
So we have some good topics on the cast for everybody today. We're going to talk about celebrities. We're going to talk about death-defying car rides. We're going to talk about me being a cheeky child. And then we're going to give some updates. So that's what we're going to do for today's episode. So if you're ready, Mother.
I'm ready.
You're ready? We can buckle up and let's get started.
All right, let's go.
So today I wanted to talk about a couple of stories that involved you and I specifically. And for those of you that aren't aware, I love stand-up comedy. If you can't tell by this podcast and the little jokes and quips and stuff that I love to tell, I've loved stand-up comedy since I was a little kid. We used to watch different stand-up specials all the time. Like, I know particularly the ones that you've seen. We've seen like the Blue Collar Comedy Tour. We've seen live everybody from the likes of Ron White to Jim Gaffigan, Jeff Dunham with the puppets and stuff. However, I would argue that all of those experiences pale in comparison to one person in particular. And he just so happens to be my favorite stand-up comic, Mike Birbiglia.
Yo, Mike.
He has a podcast, you know.
No, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, he does. It's called Working It Out. And he actually films it. I think it's from his home studio, and he has a bunch of different iPhone cameras. So he can swap on the fly in between camera angles. So like if he's got like a board that he has a bunch of ideas on, and that's why it's called Working It Out, because it's a place where he can actually test different stand-up material. So he can like swap over to his board. He can swap over to his desk cam. I think he's got like a general room cam, so you can see like the crew that's helping him and stuff.
Check it out.
Yeah, it's a good listen. He mostly has different guests on that he's interacted with in his career. So whether that be other stand-up comics or people that he's been in like different projects with or movies with or whatever, maybe just friends in the industry or whatever. So it's a good listen. Definitely check that out after this podcast, of course.
Of course.
But the story that we're going to tell today, the main story, is when you and I went to go see Mr. Birbiglia live. And this was your first experience seeing him live, my first experience seeing him live. And it was also the first time I had ever driven in New York City. And it's probably the first time you went to the city. No, I guess you went with grandma years ago, and you went on a class trip when you were younger. But I was going to say it was the first time you had been back to the city in years.
Many, many years, yeah.
Yeah. Well, when would you and grandma have gone down? I must have been a kid.
10, 12 years ago, maybe.
From now?
Yeah.
Okay. And we went to go see Mike Birbiglia in 2016. So It was probably closer to like 5 to 7 from then.
But we didn't drive. We went down.
Yeah,
on
you
a
drove.
bus.
It was a bus trip.
Right.
I drove this trip, and we got everything situated ahead of time and stuff, and we drove down, and I believe...
Very impressed.
Well, it's not that impressive. I mean...
Yes, it is.
It's just keeping you cool in a very sort of congested traffic situation or whatever. But we had ordered parking the night before, and I really enjoyed that, because it was essentially like a one lot square on the corner of one block in New York City. And I don't remember how far it was away from the theater. It was a little bit away.
A few blocks.
Yeah,
maybe.
a few blocks. And the way it works is like they basically have like scaffolding set up for the cars. So when you hand them your car keys, they get in, they drive it onto like this scaffolding. They push a button, and then it raises up to the second or third level. And then they just park cars vertically. And then whenever it's time for you to pick up your car, they would just shift cars around and get yours down. I think mine was parked on the top level because
when we came back.
Yeah, we had to wait. But that's besides the point. So anyway, we drive down to the city. I want to say this was April 20th of 2016. I'd have to look back at the ticket. And I was going to say, normally I have the ticket on my desk, but I think it's actually buried under my keyboard.
It was in April.
Yeah, it was like mid to late April. And we ended up just walking around the city a little bit before the show, and we got pizza.
Found a restaurant.
Yeah. And then we ended up going to the show. And the show, I'm pretty sure it was called the Cherry Grove Theater or the Red Grove Theater. It's closed now, and that's why I'm having trouble remembering the name. I could easily Google this right now. I mean, why wouldn't I? I do it with anything else. Anyway, it was basically like this community-run theater in New York City. They, were accepting donations and stuff, and obviously it must not have gone well if they're no longer a business. But we went down there, my first time being there, your first time being there at this theater, and we waited in the lobby for a while, and that's where they had like the merchandise and stuff set up. So we ended up buying a couple things. We bought his DVD that he had. It was Sleepwalk with Me, which was the special that went on. It was 2 specials before the one that we saw. The one that we saw was Thank God for Jokes. The one before that was My Girlfriend's Boyfriend. And then the one before that was Sleepwalk with Me. And this was new material at the time. I don't even know if Thank God for Jokes had even come out on Netflix yet. I don't think it did.
And I don't remember.
Yeah, and I'll have to look it up. But so anyway, we go in the theater, and it was like this little theater, probably could seat about 200 people, I want to say. And we all kind of sat in like a rainbow style fashion, like around the stage area. And you and I were really far to the left. Like we were probably, if you were to say the front row of the theater would have been indigo or violet of the rainbow, and we were on the left, we were probably in the navy blue section of the theater, I would say.
Off to the side.
Yeah, we were way off to the side, and we were actually next to the area where he walked in. Like he would enter in to do the show. So he goes on, he does a set, and he does a fantastic set. If you haven't had a chance to check out the show, like I said, it's on Netflix. Thank God for Jokes. Definitely check it out. But we had a great time with it, and I always will remember that evening for one very specific reason. It was because, well, 2, technically. But that was the first time that you and I had ever been to a comedy show and I had ever heard you laugh uncontrollably. I could not get over how good of a time you were having at that show.
It was good.
Yeah. Well, and I'm trying to remember, do you recall if I had introduced you to him prior to that?
You may have, but not at any great length.
Yeah, so you had maybe heard a couple jokes or maybe seen like a clip or 2 from him, but that was your first full Birbiglia show experience.
Right.
But yeah, so I'll never forget that. But then the other moment is after the show was over. And we had talked with typical Debbie fashion, befriending the staff and different strangers in the establishment. We had struck up a conversation with one of the workers, one of the volunteers there, and she had told us that Mike, after some of these shows, would go out into the lobby and like he would talk with people after the show, or he would sign stuff for them. He would essentially like wait around.
Right.
He's from New York himself, or actually he's from Shrewsbury, Massachusetts, but he lives in New York now with his family, and did at the time as well. So we kind of thought to ourselves, well, we're just going to drive home anyway. We're not going to get home until 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night.
It's going to be later than that.
Yeah,
but...
probably. So we were like, well, why don't we just see if we can meet him, and actually like get his autograph or chat with him or whatever. But I don't even recall how long we stood in the lobby. It wasn't that long. It was probably like 10 minutes.
No, it might have been a little bit longer than that.
I was trying to think in the time that we were there. I was wondering, like, what should I have him sign if we get a chance to meet him? Obviously, I had the poster that we bought.
And we had a program.
We had the program from the show.
The tickets.
And we also had the DVD.
Right.
Sleepwalk with Me. So I was like, well, out of these 4 things, what would I rather have him sign? Now, I think the poster was in like a tube.
Yep.
Yeah. So I didn't want it to like unravel and me to have to stick it in, and I'm like, it's going to bend the corner or whatever. And to be perfectly honest, I don't know where the poster is. It's probably in my closet, but I'm not sure at this point in time. So while we're trying to decide, all of a sudden we notice he comes out the door, and we were like, oh, well, there's Mike. And were we the first ones that talked with him? I
think so. There were only a couple people left in the lobby.
Yeah.
We were like the diehards.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
he came out way in the far corner of the lobby, and we kind of walked towards him, I think.
But I thought he walked towards us a little bit too.
Yeah.
Like we kind of met in the middle of where we were. And and he came out, and I don't recall how the exchange started, like how the conversation started. I think we said something like, hey, Mike, great to meet you, like great show. And
you offered to shake his hand, or you did shake his hand.
Yes, I did shake his hand, and he accepted that, which is funny because Mike, I don't think he's much of a germaphobe or anything, but like it may be more out of his comfort zone than I would have originally thought, but I was just excited to meet him. And apparently you were too, because the second thing that I'll ever remember from that night is, and for those of you that aren't aware, my mom is the most people person that you will ever meet in your entire life. And as I shake his hand, she kind of walks over, and I don't know if you held out your hand or he held out your hand, and you just went, oh, come here, I'm a hugger, or something like that. And you hug Mike Birbiglia, and he goes, oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
As you just pull him in for this hug. And he's got to be thinking to himself, like, who's this strange woman hugging me? Like, so that sort of deal. And he was very, very kind throughout the whole process. He answered all of our questions and carried on our conversations. And I think he was the one who even offered, like, do you want me to sign something? Right. And you had him sign, was it your program?
My program.
Yeah. And I had him sign my ticket, which I still have. Like I said, it's underneath my keyboard at my desk. So yeah, so I have that. It was such a great time talking with him. And the other notable point from that conversation was when we were talking to him, he had mentioned something like, where are you guys from? And we had said, oh, well, and then no, you answered first. That's right.
I answered first, and I mentioned this name of the city that he mentioned in the show.
No, you said Massachusetts.
But he referred to Massachusetts in the show.
Yeah, but he's from Shrewsbury, but you didn't say you were from Shrewsbury.
I said Massachusetts.
Yeah, you said, oh, Massachusetts, just repeating his
right.
joke back at him. And he was like, oh, you guys are from Massachusetts? And I'm like, no, we're from upstate New York. She just liked the joke.
Yeah.
And then we only talked with him for a few minutes.
We did tell him where we were from, though.
Did he know? Didn't he know?
No, I don't think he knew where it was, but we did tell him, because that comes into play later on at another show.
Yeah, because we're from upstate New York, has been talked about in the show and stuff, and won't go into details exactly where we are. But for the second show that we ever went to go see him, that one we traveled down to Albany, and there was a show at the Funny Bone. which is a comedy club down in Crossgates Mall.
I don't know if it's there anymore.
I
But
think it is. I used to get emails from them all the time, but I don't know. I haven't in a long time. I hope the pandemic didn't kill them, because I
don't know.
definitely that second show actually was at the end of 2016 going in. No, it was the beginning of 2017.
2017.
Yeah, because it hadn't even been a year since we
Right, it was
last
less
saw
than a year.
him. And then we went to that show and we actually sat, you can't even say front row.
We were on the stage.
We were front table.
We had a table next to the stage.
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know where anything about the Funny Bone, it's in Crossgates Mall. It's in like the upper wing in this one section of the mall. Like you can go in a side door, you go up the escalators, and it's right there. And the way that it works is it's almost kind of like a movie theater where they have like concession stands out front. And then you go down like a hallway and you take a right and you go into like this really large amphitheater style room that's probably...
It was a dinner theater.
Yeah.
Basically.
It was similar to the Red Grove or Cherry Grove Theater down in New York City, but it was fitted with tables in the middle as well, not just rainbow style seating. And we had the front table. Like basically obviously I wouldn't have wanted this to happen, but if there was a situation where he would have fainted on stage, he would have fainted onto our table.
Or other people's tables who were in front.
Yeah. So, and I think what was even more awkward about that show wasn't anything to do with him. It was, and I don't know if you remember this, it was the people that we were seated with at the table knew or worked with other people at the company that I had just left working at.
That's right.
Which, for continuity's sake, is the same company in episode 8 of season 1 of this podcast where I talked about my crazy supervisor. So I had just left that company, and then it wasn't even 4 months later. It was within 4 months later. Now we go to this comedy show and it's like, oh yeah, here's these, here's people that actually know of this company, or like I said, they either work there or
you didn't know
they
them.
No, I had no idea who they were or who they were talking about if it wasn't them. But obviously that company was kind of like, it was kind of like a closed off community. Like you may not have known people directly, but you may have heard of them.
Right.
Everybody, it was just kind of like this echo chamber, like where your name got around even if you didn't directly work with or know them at length or whatever. So that kind of took away from the mystique of the show a little bit, because I was just like, in the middle of the show, these people are going to look at me and go, you, like, we know you or whatever. But they never did. But this new show, I don't remember what it was called. Later, the jokes and the material that he was telling would turn into a show that called The New One.
Right.
But, and I don't know if you remember, I can't remember any specific jokes that he told from the Funny Bone that night that made it into The New One special.
And if you can't remember, I can't remember.
Well, we had also just recently watched The New One. We've watched that within the last month and a half.
Yeah.
And that I don't recall, like that was me hearing all that material for the first time. So evidently that show, whatever material he used, I guess wasn't something he wanted to include in that in that show. But for those of you that don't know Mike at all, he is what I would call like a storytelling comedian. Kind of like how I base this podcast off of. Like you tell a story at large and include jokes along the way.
Right.
And Mike does a masterful job of like, he'll tell you this grand story that stretches over the course of an entire show. And then he'll tell like micro stories along the way that relate back to the main story.
Right.
So the main story of this New One show that turned out to be was him becoming a father. And that whole journey of the show, which I thought that was a phenomenal show.
Yeah,
in my opinion, my favorite show of his is My Girlfriend's Boyfriend, followed second probably by The New One. And then the first one I ever heard by him was Sleepwalk with Me, which I think that would now be third. But all excellent shows. Couldn't recommend them enough. And if you're curious at all, I would advise anyone to check them out. What do you think?
Oh, I do too. I think he's great.
Now that we're about 20 minutes into the show, I have to ask, are you any more or less nervous than at the start?
About the same.
About the same? That's unbelievable. I can see your body language, like you're closed off, like you're like
Well, I'm not supposed to move from the microphone, and I'm sitting. I don't want the chair to squeak. So
I don't know. It's just funny to me because obviously this is an experience that any and all guests that I try to have on the show, I try to make it as comfortable as possible. And you've already been on it. So like, you know what it's all about.
I know what it's about. But...
You've heard almost all the episodes. So it's just funny to me how nervous you are. It's okay. It's okay. This is a safe place. Nobody will judge you.
Now, have you finished Mike Birbiglia or no?
I guess if you're telling me
the only thing
can.
At the end of the second show at the Funny Bone, I just through the whole thing kept thinking he might remember us.
Oh, okay. Yeah. See, I wouldn't have even touched on that aspect of the story. He did. There was one joke he told, and like I said, I really don't remember the material, which is awful. But he actually like looked at you like he made
eye contact, but I thought he might have said a story about some woman that hugged me at one of my prior shows that made me very uncomfortable.
No, he didn't.
No, he didn't
say that.
He didn't say that, but I thought he might.
We
joked about it.
Yeah, it would have been funnier if, you and I years later have joked about it. It would have been funnier, I think, if he would have just said, "Hey, you look familiar." Yeah. Like he just looked at you and was like, "You were the lady who hugged me." And obviously Mike does so many different shows and meets so many different people and has his own life going on. So it's not like we ever expected him to remember us, but it would have been a cool little like you style of moment. But so that's the Mike Birbiglia stories that we have. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
Nope, that was it.
I was going to say, because you apparently have more to add than I do at the end there. I would have just glossed right over that. But I definitely hope that that the pandemic and stuff clears up soon, because I really would like to go see him again. I know he had shows that were going up for sale, but I think they sold out relatively quickly. And I think the one that was the closest to us was either in New York City or Philadelphia, which we would have obviously probably gone to the New York City one because Philly's even farther. But I don't know if they were selling tickets during a time where we would or wouldn't have been able to receive vaccinations. So maybe that would have been like, ooh, like in public again, like, a little bit leery about it or whatever. But yeah, so hopefully we can see him again live soon. And Mike, if you ever hear this again, you have 2 fans for life in us. So yeah, so I figured we would just do a hard segue, as is tradition on this podcast, into our next talking point. And that story is a lot more horrifying than the Mike Birbiglia story. And I don't really even know how to describe like the events of it. The only thing that I can best use to describe it is, as a kid, it's the closest moment that I've ever had in my life where the phrase, like, whenever you're involved in a car accident and time appears to slow down, has ever applied to me. And I've been in a car accident before, so I know that time doesn't slow down when you're in a car accident. It went just as fast as everyday life, if not faster. But when I was a kid, the incident that we're about to talk about, that is the only time it ever felt like it slowed down. And you know what I'm going to talk about? It's the Thruway furniture fiasco, as I have dubbed it. So do you want to start telling the story? Or do you want me to start telling the story?
Aaron and I were on our way back from downstate in New York, and I'm driving 2-lane highway. I don't know if I can mention the name of the...
I thought it was 3 lanes.
We were on a 2-lane.
Oh, that's
and
where...
And then we went into 3 lanes.
Got it.
And I happened to look up into the rearview mirror, and I saw a pickup truck coming up on the left-hand... I was in the middle lane. This truck was coming up on the left-hand side. And I commented to Aaron about, wait till you see this. It looks like somebody has a living room set up in the back of the truck. I could see, like, out the side, a chair. It looked like a lamp. And as the truck went by and pulled in front of us, or maybe they were still in the left lane, a wind caught the furniture and everything came flying out of the back of the truck towards our car. And if I remember, there were pins set up or cones set up, and I kind of maneuvered in and out of cones to avoid the furniture. Nothing hit the car, but it looked like we may have been
Yeah,
We
it
may
was
have been
scary.
hit by something. Lamp, chair, dresser type thing. There was furniture flying.
So just to recap, this was on the New York State Thruway. This would have been on the portion where it shifts back to 90. Like we were essentially going 90 west.
Right.
And I don't recall which exits, but like you said, it was where it shifts from 2-lane to 3-lane, which if yeah. Oh, it was. It was up that
it
far.
was up
Okay.
that far.
So if you've ever driven on the Thruway, you'll know exactly like where we're talking about. So this truck came up. From what I recall, we were in the middle lane, and I was 9 or 10 years old.
And I'm not sure back then. You were in the front seat with me.
I was. Yeah, definitely.
Maybe it was after that. You had to be 12 before you could go in the front seat. So you shouldn't,
I shouldn't have been up in the front seat anyway. Well, what car were we in? Were we in your black Nissan?
No.
Oh, no, because you would have gotten that in 2000.
No, it might have been the black Nissan. I would have gotten it in 99.
Oh.
So, yeah,
it must have been the black Nissan then.
But, when you stayed in the back till you were 12, again, maybe at that particular time the laws were different. But I wouldn't have put you in the front on the way back.
See, you say I stayed in the back when I was 12, but I distinctly remember being in the front seat of your blue Chevy Cavalier sitting on my knees. It's statute of limitations. It's all hearsay
right.
now. I'm 30, so we don't have to worry about this. Times were different, people. Times were different. So from what I remember is we were in the middle lane, truck comes by on the left side lane, and then there was another car that was in the middle lane that we were approaching. So you pulled into the left-hand lane, and we were there because I remember when the furniture started a-flying and it came right at us, I remember there was two things that I could recall from that incident. One, we were behind the truck when it happened, and two, before the wind kicked up and started to like throw everything, I remember hearing like the ropes coming apart, and we were running over pieces of the rope because it almost sounded like gravel getting kicked up in the wheel well of your car. And it sounded like it was almost just like somebody had maracas in the front wheels of your car.
See, I didn't remember that part. I guess I was just too busy trying to avoid.
I vividly remember that. And then the couch came flying out first. Then because the couch was at the end, and then in from the couch there was like this recliner chair, and I think pinched in between the two was the lamp. On the right side, I recall there was like a mini fridge or it was like a smaller like refrigerator or box type device or whatever. And then there was like just a whole bunch of junk. There was like chairs, like lawn chairs and stuff. And so it all just came flying out. And I remember you did a masterful weaving job of just going like right, left, right. And the tires are, screeching, and you're on the brakes and on the gas and we're turning and stuff. Thankfully, there was not a lot of traffic around us. I think that really, obviously, the only cars that were affected were probably you, like our car, and the car that we had probably just passed that was in the middle lane. Everybody else that was behind us had to deal with the fallout. So we essentially kind of got lucky in that we didn't have to deal with any sort of traffic.
Right.
Because at that point, once the furniture came flying off the truck, he knew, or they knew, what had happened, and they had to pull over to the side of the road.
Yeah, we just went on. We continued on.
And I remember being pretty shaken by the experience. Like
terribly shaken.
I don't think I was afraid like that we were ever going to die, but you don't expect a full-size couch to come flying off of a truck at your windshield, which it's not like it went airborne like 10 feet in the air, but when the wind caught it, it's tumbling at you. Yeah, like the one side, the left arm of the couch went flying towards the sky, and then it started to just like tumble down the road, and the recliner chair, from what I recall, just kind of like skidded out the back of the truck and just plopped down on the road. Like that didn't tumble at all. So I guess the aerodynamics of a recliner chair are much better than a couch. And then the lamp kind of just, it was amazing you didn't get a flat tire.
Yeah, no, we didn't get any damage at all.
Not at all.
You were shaken though.
Yes.
You definitely. I guess I was too, but I was trying to keep it cool because of you.
Well, yeah, and you were also driving, so you had a task to do. I was
Right.
just kind of sitting bug-eyed in the front seat like, oh my God.
He may have jumped to the back then.
No, I did not. No, I did not. Because then I remember we ended up, you wanted to try to like calm me down, and the great mom that you are, we went to Walmart and you bought me a game.
Was it Walmart or Kmart?
It was Walmart.
Walmart.
It was
guess
Walmart.
was
We went to Walmart and you bought me Pokemon Stadium for the Nintendo 64. And we were trying, kind of a peek behind the curtain of the podcast here. We were trying to like place when this would be. The only thing that I knew was it obviously had to be after the release date of Pokemon Stadium, which in the States was February of 2000. And we knew it happened during warmer weather, like during the summer.
Yeah.
So at this point, it's probably the summer of 2000 or, yeah, it had to be the summer of 2000 because I don't think it would have been the summer of 2001. So yeah, which that would have put me, I would have been 9 years old at the time. And yeah, so you were very generous mom to calm my nerves with a nice video game.
And it worked.
Yeah.
Somewhat.
Yeah, I did. And I mean, that video game was hard for like a 9-year-old. Any Pokemon Stadium player will know that there was some BS in that game, but I don't expect you to remember.
No.
But do you want to play it? I still have it.
No, thank you.
Funny enough, I actually have 2 copies of the game. I don't know why. Don't ever remember buying it again. The only thing that I could ever think of was somebody gifted it to me as like a Christmas present, but I already had it. So.
And it could have involved a trip to Virginia or West Virginia. And I think you lost it or thought you lost it. I bought another one.
No, but it's a Nintendo 64, so it wouldn't have been a handheld game cartridge. That was for my at-home console.
Oh, okay.
I have 2 of them. I still have. It's in my video game box in my closet.
Okay.
If anybody wants a Pokemon Stadium game, let me know and I'll send it to you. It's probably somewhat of a collector's item, but people have made emulators and stuff for the PC, so it's probably not. Wishful thinking on my part. But now this is a much better segue from that story. The other story that I wanted to touch on also involves furniture on the podcast today, and it's us going to pick up these 2 resin rocking chairs that my mother so desperately wanted for our outside patio. And I don't remember, how did you find them?
Several years ago, I had visited a friend's house. They were out by the pool. Not totally the same, but I knew in my head what I wanted. So we took a trip to Lowe's. Can we say Lowe's?
Yeah. So you actually wanted these things for years?
Couple years, yeah.
Oh, okay.
2-3 years.
I'm just surprised because you had never brought them up until this year.
Yeah.
You wanted them in green, though.
Yeah, I wanted
and
green.
What's interesting, though, is on the Lowe's website, they
appeared to be green.
Yeah, very clearly. Now, I wouldn't say green like a green or like a forest green. It was almost kind of like a pea soup green. Like it was like not quite like darker than a booger green, but I don't know, like a brownish green.
Like a camouflage.
Yes,
green.
yes. That was closer to what it was. But then we get to the store and we had actually ordered them ahead of time. I don't remember if our Lowe's actually had a bunch of them in stock, but I think
they had some in stock.
Yeah, but we were a little bit concerned because we didn't know when we were going to be able to go down there. So we ordered them online and then we went down to go pick them up.
Right.
And we get there, and what color are the chairs?
They're gray.
They're gray as gray can be. Gray as my car gray, which is gray. Like if you open up the manual,
no
it
hint
says,
of green at all.
Yeah, so that was a little bit disappointing from the onset. But the reason why this story relates to the Thruway Furniture Fiasco story is because of how we had to transport the chairs home. Now, we ended up taking my car to go and pick up the chairs. And the only reason why is because my car has a slightly bigger interior than your car. And the trunk is a little bit bigger. So that's why we decided to take mine. But these rocking chairs, I expected them to be not assembled and in a box. And you could just assemble them like it would be like directions and be like place, piece A with piece B and then screw in a screw or whatever. Do that for the other arm or whatever and do that. No, these are handcrafted plastic resin rocking chairs.
Already put together.
But no, but you can't even say put together because they're just one whole piece
like
of plastic.
One piece, yeah.
Like, and I don't even know how. I can't even begin to imagine how they have to manufacture those. Like, is it just a huge chunk of plastic that they carve out like with a laser or whatever? I have no idea. That's for the bigwigs in Washington to worry about. But I was like, I don't know how we're going to get these things home. It's not like you can strap a rocking chair to the roof of the car. We only brought a bungee cord,
right,
as in one. And I'm like, well, I hope that these things can fit into the trunk of my car. And I was pretty confident when we were in the store that we were going to be able to do it. I don't know
we
how.
knew they would not fit totally.
Yeah. But I was confident. How confident were you that we were going to be able to transport these home without having to?
I wasn't sure.
You weren't sure?
So
it was, you were more middle of the road.
Yeah, definitely middle of the road.
I was pretty confident in saying, like, I'm going to say on a scale of 10, 10 being the most confident, 1 being the least confident, I was a solid 8 that we could get these chairs home.
I guess I knew we could get them home, but I wasn't quite sure how far they would fit into the back of the car.
So the way that we fit them in was, it's a rocking chair. So you have the legs of the chair, and then you have like an arc along the bottom of them, not a flat plane. Otherwise it wouldn't be a rocking chair. Shout out to Mark the Earther. And we put the arc of the chairs facing out of the trunk, which means that we fit in the chairs into my trunk back first and facing down towards the trunk itself.
Right.
So like essentially, if you were to be seated in the chair and fit into the car, you would be staring up at the ceiling of my car or the sky, depending on how far you could look out from the trunk. So we put them in there, and we had the one bungee cord, and then I'll never forget trying to fit it through the hole on my trunk because
you don't have a good spot to fit a bungee cord.
I don't. It's a bad spot. And what really sucks about it is the cord was also not very stretchy.
Right.
It was like a very like strong tensile strength bungee cord where it would get to a certain point and it just would not extend anymore unless it would break. So we hooked it on, and I think it was just in this hole in my trunk into the bottom of the chair. It didn't even stretch to the bottom of the trunk. Yeah. So then I remember thinking to myself, well, I know what I've got to do. So I threw my keys to you and I said, you're driving. And you said, are you sure? And I said, yeah, unless you want to get in the back seat and hold them in. And you said, no. So I got into the back seat. We had to lower my back seats, and I was half in the trunk and half out of the trunk in my car, which I didn't even realize until right now is a callback to our first episode of season 1, where it's all back into riding into the trunk of your car story to get ice cream. It comes full circle.
Full circle.
So I'm half in and out of this trunk, holding on to it. And what was really disorienting was, if anybody has ever experienced this, you'll know the sensation that I'm about to describe. If you are riding in a car and seated in the back seat, and whoever has control of the windows or whatever puts down the back windows and you get like that, wah, 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 like that air noise, I cannot tell you how loud that was in the trunk of my car. It was so loud. It was to the point where when you and I are talking on the ride home, like you're asking me like, how are you? And I'm like, I'm okay. Like I'm just shouting as loud as I can because I can't hear you. I could just barely hear what you're saying. And it's not even like I had a good angle at the mirror to be able to like, see what you were saying, like try to lip read or whatever. And there was one car that followed us all the way pretty much from Lowe's. Like when we turned out of Lowe's, there's this one road that you turn out onto. Pretty much from that road up until about an intersection or two away from our house.
Yeah, it was quite a while.
And all I could think of is just, these people must be like, we got to see how this plays out. Like they could probably see my head and my arm, like just holding on to these chairs. And luckily it's not a rough ride home. It wasn't like a bad ride home. But I was thinking to myself, if these chairs fall, it's no one else's fault but my own. And I don't want that burden of responsibility on me, because it's almost like that walk of shame, like these people with the truck had to do on the thruway. Like it's well, now I got to go pick up my furniture from the thruway. Like at this point it would be, well, now I got to, get my rocking chairs back into the trunk of the car, which also, if they fell, it would have scuffed up your brand new chairs.
That's right.
So I didn't want that to happen either. And then we get the chairs home, and the whole purpose of buying these chairs in particular was one for you, one for me. And you thought to yourself, these are going to go great on the patio. And I said to you, are these going to be able to fit on the patio? Like, is there going to be enough real estate to like rock back and forth comfortably? And you're like, yeah, it'll be fine. And we get the chairs home and we get them out of the trunk. And the first words you said were, these may not fit on the patio.
Yeah, there's not much real estate left.
No, I mean, we can rock, I would say comfortably.
Yeah.
Pause intended. I would say it's not the most like free range rocking chair that we have, but it's not bad.
And it's been a lousy summer. We haven't even used them that much.
Yeah, and I think the main problem was the beginning of the summer was, I don't even know if you could really
warm.
you can't even really call it summer. Like very late spring, maybe into early summer, it was very hot, and it was a lot sunnier than it is now, to the point where I was concerned because half of our lawn was dead. So I'm like, I'm not going to have much grass to mow this year, which I guess is a good thing. But then ever since thinking that thought, I would be shocked if we haven't had more days where it rained than where it was sunny.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It's been so rainy this summer.
Lawn is saturated.
Definitely now. But yeah, so that's the resin rocking chair story. So if anybody needs to get rocking chairs home from Lowe's, do not call me. I've already put in my time. You figure it out yourself. Now, we're quickly approaching the end here, but the last little sub-story that I wanted to tell before we give our puzzle update and before we give the Bonsai Bonanza update was I wanted to talk about me being, what's the term I want to say? A little gremlin of a child. I could be a gremlin at times. I mellowed out probably when I was 12.
Explain gremlin.
So I wasn't like a sneaky kid, but I would classify this topic that we're about to talk about as being sneaky, vitamins. And I knew that would get a reaction out of you. That's why I wanted to say it. So for those of you that don't know, my dad was big into vitamins.
Huge.
If vitamins were a stock, he would have invested in vitamins till the stock went to the moon. Like he was all about. He would go to these natural supplement stores and he would buy all sorts of different supplements. We actually had in our kitchen a cabinet that still to this day, even though they are no longer in there and he's no longer with us, is deemed the vitamin cabinet. We still have that in our kitchen, and there's no vitamins in there. I don't even, at least I don't think there are.
There's nail polish.
Yeah, now there's nail polish. So it went from being the vitamin cabinet to the nail polish cabinet. But my dad was huge into vitamins. He would buy all sorts of natural stuff or whatever. And he was big when I was a kid about me taking like a multivitamin.
One a day.
Yeah. So I'm sure so many people from my age group, and maybe even a little bit older than me too, will remember these vitamins when I tell you they were the Flintstone vitamins that were delicious. I cannot tell you how delicious these vitamins were, but at the same time, I didn't like to take them because I would have to take them before I went to school in the morning. And a lot of times I didn't want to eat breakfast, or like, you would force me to eat like a little bit of a breakfast just so I wouldn't go into school being hungry or whatever. But a lot of times when you take vitamins and stuff, you're supposed to take them with food or like on a full stomach.
Right.
So whenever I would take these vitamins, they would upset my stomach because it's just concentrate, and I was a little twig of a shit child when I was little. Like, I was very, very scrawny. Still am to this day, but less scrawny today than I was back then. And I would just take these vitamins, and I remember they would give me stomach aches at times. So it got to the point where I told you that I didn't want to take these vitamins. So we would eventually throw them out, and we would pretend like, because I would
open the vitamin jar, give you a vitamin, and you would I think you made a sucking sound.
Yeah,
so
like I would be
was-
like,
yeah,
like try to like pretend chew them.
but then it would get thrown away.
And I remember always trying to cover the sound of the vitamin hitting the side of the garbage can or just dropping it in, like if it was an empty garbage or whatever. I always remember trying to like cover it like with a foot stomp or like a like a just a sound effect or noise or whatever. But normally Dad would be in the bathroom, so he would have the door closed, the fan going, so he probably couldn't hear us anyway. But before we had this elaborate system in place, I took matters into my own hands. And I was disposing of vitamins secretly without either of you knowing. And talk about how you discovered that one day.
Well, you used to sit on the couch and watch TV before you went to school.
Mm-hmm.
And I would come in with whatever it was I gave you to eat and a vitamin.
Normally it was either probably like powdered donuts, cereal, or
nothing healthy.
No, but
well, cereal was healthy.
Cereal was healthy.
Yeah.
Normally it would have either been probably Cheerios, like a frosted Cheerio or regular Cheerio or whatever, Rice Krispies. I didn't like Fruit Loops. Ugh.
You did eat them for a while.
Yeah,
but I guess you didn't like them. Anyway, there was a box under one of the end tables in the living room that I kept loose pictures in, and they would get taken out and put in an album eventually.
But the box was there for a long time.
The box was there for quite a while, and I guess I didn't discover for quite a while because there were quite a few vitamins that Aaron used to throw in the bottom of the box, and I think Dad did find out about that, but
he did?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, I wouldn't have known that. See, I had a perfect solution. I picked the corner that had the most stuff in it, so it had the smallest opening, and I would just go bloop, and I would just ploop these vitamins into this corner without thinking.
Eventually, somebody's going to find them.
Or if it, like, and I didn't think this far ahead as a kid. Like I've said this before, I was kind of like a dumb kid when I was younger. Like I did stuff that, looking back, I'm like, man, that was pretty stupid. But the kid in me never thought about eventually, if I would have just kept putting vitamins in this corner, they would have overflowed the box. The kid in me was just like, that's tomorrow me's problem.
Right.
Like
right.
You didn't
think beyond that day, or
it was almost kind of like when I was a kid, you guys never made me like take out the garbage or whatever. So to me, the garbage would always just go away. So this box almost seemed like the garbage to me, where I was like, oh, eventually it'll just go away. That's how the garbage goes away. I didn't think about ever getting caught or anything. So years later, you just discover. So how big was the mound of vitamins?
I honestly don't remember, but I found a good little stockpile of vitamins that were discarded.
I would probably say maybe a quarter of a bottle of Flintstones vitamins I had thrown in there. That would be good. Anywhere from a quarter to a half of a bottle. Now, I would probably be willing to wager that there are other vitamins that are hidden in various boxes in our house at this very moment. I'd be willing to say that.
I don't know where. I haven't found them.
I can't remember doing it as a kid. Like you said, the box was in the living room, like near the couch. I thought it was in the hallway.
No.
Yeah. So I was wrong there.
No, maybe you did throw some in a box.
That's what I mean. I have vivid memories of throwing Flintstones vitamins into a box in the hallway. So I'm thinking there's got to be boxes of something.
Well, the boxes aren't in the hallway right now, so.
No, they're not. They're not. But I'm sure somewhere in this house, in the corner of these boxes somewhere, are probably
mice, and maybe they've gotten rid of them.
No, we don't have mice in our house. But I would wager probably moldy Flintstone vitamins. Well, wait, no, they wouldn't get mold unless there's moisture.
Yeah, no.
Probably just really dry and crusty Flintstone vitamins.
Yeah. We could always buy some and test it.
Yeah, but then we got to wait years. Do we have that kind of time for the podcast? Like, who knows? Like, if this podcast will be around forever, or a few more years or whatever. We'll see. I enjoy making it right now, and I want it to go on for a long time. So that kind of brings us to the end of the program. It's already flown by.
Oh, it has.
We've been recording this for almost 55 minutes now.
It feels like it.
It's longer than the first episode, So, of course, what we need to do, as is tradition, we need to go over the puzzle update. So, for those of you that aren't aware, if you haven't listened to the first 2 episodes of season 2 of the podcast, I myself, Aaron, hello, wanted to have a season-long event that went across the entirety of season 2 of the podcast. Couldn't decide on one thing, so I decided on doing a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle as the first thing, and the second thing is growing a bunch of bonsai trees. So this first thing is called Puzzle Update, and I am trying to build a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle that is all white. It is just a white blank canvas of nothingness. The only way that you can be sure that you have 2 pieces that fit in the proper place is on the back side of the pieces. They have symbols printed, so you are aware that you have the correct puzzle placement.
And these are minute pieces.
They're very small pieces. Probably the smallest puzzle pieces I've ever seen to a puzzle ever.
Yeah.
Cannot stress that enough.
Yeah.
So I figured we would do the puzzle update. So there's been a bit of an update in the puzzle. We started building on the corner of our kitchen table, or I should say the edge, because we have a rounded kitchen table. And I don't know if you had just thought it was a better idea for me to move the puzzle to have its own dedicated table, or if you wanted control of that area of the kitchen table again.
I wanted the whole kitchen table back.
That's what I thought. So we ended up deciding to move the puzzle off of the kitchen table onto a dedicated card table that we have, and that is now in the living room. So that was a process of moving it. And I knew it was going to go poorly. I just didn't know how poorly. And I would say it went pretty poorly.
It was poor.
Yeah. So the moving of the puzzle pieces that had not been assembled in the puzzle, that was fine.
Yeah.
That was just moving mounds of puzzle pieces. I had divvied them up into symbol and to, edge pieces and shapes and size and all that, blah. So I moved those accordingly. But moving the gigantic U-shaped puzzle that I had already assembled, the bottom border, and then pretty much almost the full left side and partial on the right side, moving that was going to be a pain because as I may or may not have described, I can't remember, the puzzle pieces fit together very loosely. Very, very loosely.
So you can't pick up a whole edge.
Yeah. And it would just fall apart. So I kind of had this idea that I wanted to scoot it off of the table onto some type of flat bendable surface. I thought maybe one of my old video game posters would do, or if we found an old piece of poster board or something. I think what we ended up trying to use was like a brown paper bag.
Mm-hmm.
And that didn't work immediately. It broke apart and I just knew I was going to have to build it. So what I ended up doing was I took those pieces that broke, because obviously once I knew it was going to break, I stopped. So I assembled those back on the new card table, and then I just took the puzzle apart 2 pieces at a time and put them back together. So, this is the picture that I'm going to show you right now, Mom, just so you can comment. There's the puzzle pieces that are in their piles on the card table. And then here is the newly assembled, updated puzzle on the new card table itself. And it actually looks like a little smiley face.
White on white.
Yeah, that's probably an oversight on my part. What we probably should have done was put like a thin cloth, like a tablecloth or something like that over
Probably.
it. Because it's going to make my life a living hell. Obviously, like, people can really see the detail, like if they zoom in on the pictures or whatever. But yeah, the mini piles that you can see there that are below the actual assembled puzzle, those are the remaining circle, striped, and triangle pieces. I think I was totally done with clubs at that point. And then the very top pieces up at the top, those are the edge pieces. And I had luckily found like a couple pieces that matched with that. So this week's puzzle update is that it's on a new card table and we've slightly assembled more of it. And oh boy, I can't wait to get to the next one because that one's going to be awful. And finally, the final talking point of the podcast, we have Bonsai Bonanza. As you know, Mom, I have fallen in love with these bonsai trees. I check them every day. I would argue
more than once a day.
Yep. I would argue probably anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes of my day is spent on these bonsai plants and sprouts and all that. So the last pictures that we saw, you didn't, but that the people have seen, we've got our first little sprouts. We've got 3 little black spruce sprouts in there, and we've got a 4th one coming up. We've got the one blue spruce sprout that's, rising to the heavens. And now we've got Titan that's emerging, the flame tree sprout, and literally just picking up the seed in the dirt with it. And it's just, it's amazing to witness. And now we have some updated pictures for everybody. And Titan is spreading his leaves.
Looks good.
And just absolutely showcasing himself to the world. We've got the 4 little black spruce sprouts, try saying that 5 times fast, that are coming up, and they're, getting their little fingies all out. We got the blue spruce sprout, which looks, healthy, just right along the edge there. And then finally, we have some close-up shots of the behemoth, the Titan, Goliath itself, of the flame tree with the leaves opening and getting the little branches that are coming out of it. And the final picture that we'll share here is, and this one is unbelievable. You can really see some of the details of just this flame tree like snaking up. Now, I think what's even crazier is this photo was taken probably 3 weeks after we had planted those seeds.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say maybe 2.5 weeks, because after 11 days, so just shy of 2 weeks, that was when that sprout started to come up, the flame tree.
Yep.
And then I would say within a week is when it started to stand up straight, open up, and you could actually see the branches and stuff developing. It's been quite the process. Who would have thought me, little old Aaron here, would have such a green thumb?
Who would have thought?
Who would have thunk it? But we're getting progress on the puzzle. We're getting progress on the plants. And that's where our updates bring us to the end of the podcast.
Whew.
Scale of 1 to 10, 10 being feeling great, on cloud 9, couldn't be better. 1, abysmal, I hate it, get me out of here. Where are you now after the end of the next episode?
7.
7? That's okay. That's good. It's a passing grade, but I would have expected it to be tippity top.
Not your content, my content.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I would have expected you to be more comfortable, because this is your second rodeo now. And you know what's coming up next, right?
What's that?
Season 3, episode 3.
Well, I know. So,
yeah. You're going to be on the 3rd episode of every season of this show that we have. So get ready.
I'm getting ready.
Because probably in about 6 months from now or whatever, we're going to be doing this again.
I've got time to work on it.
Yeah, you've got time. We've got plenty of time to build. And I have a feeling I already know some of the stories we're going to talk about on that one. So yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in. Really appreciate everybody's support on this new season of the show. Feel free to share it with a friend, whether it be by word of mouth or on social media. Go ahead and subscribe to the podcast if you're not already. Check out everything. I've got the video version of the podcast on YouTube, where you can actually see the picture elements that we talk about on this show incorporated with the broadcast, or you can just check out the show's social media pages to see everything that we've talked about on this episode and anyone that has come before it. And yeah, my name is Aaron.
And I'm Debbie.
And we've been your hosts and co-hosts for Season 2, Episode 3 of Save It for the Cast. Have a good one.
Thank you. Over and out.